Hello and welcome to Blythe Business News. For this edition, I'm joined by Jeremy Asher, who is Chairman and Chief Executive of Tower Resources. Tower, as you may know, is listed in London on the AIM market, a symbol of TRP and a market capitalisation of around £9 million sterling. Jeremy, welcome back on the programme. Now, you may have surprised us a little bit today. We knew that a Cameroon farm out was in the works. But you've also done a Namibian farm out as well. That's an interesting surprise. How did these two things come about?
Hello, Tim. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today. Yes, we'd been working on the Cameroon farm out for some time. And in the course of the conversations with Prime, they'd expressed interest in our Namibia license as well. And at first, we didn't really want to get too engaged on a discussion about Namibia because we'd always felt it was a bit premature to farm it out, given the fact that the work we're at is still very much in process on the early subsurface, and we felt that we didn't want to risk distracting the Cameroon farm out process and risking slowing that down. But as the Cameroon farm out process wound up taking quite a lot of time anyway, and we were spending more and more time with Prime, including quite a lot of time together down in South Africa during Africa Energy Week, it became clear that their interest was really serious. And we had the time to really talk them through the subsurface work we have done, even though, as you know, it's not quite complete yet. Before we acquire new 3D. So they understood exactly where we were at and were really interested in getting involved. And our own view was that although arguably we could have waited, it's good to have a partner because this is a risky project with ultimately a lot of money that will be required to develop it. And so it's good to have a partner. As we got to know Prime, we liked them a lot and felt they'd be a good partner to have from a technical point of view alongside us. And perhaps most important of all, we simply felt that this would be a good expansion of the collaboration between us. And so we went ahead with it. We have to manage our risk, and this is a good way of doing that.
Okay, I want to come back to terms of the transaction in a moment, but I think probably like many of the viewers, Prime is not that well known. So what can you tell us about them? And what does your plan to work together on other projects in Cameroon actually mean in practice?
Prime's an interesting company. It was formed, as we explained in the RNS, out of the former ENI business in Pakistan, which the management essentially bought from ENI a couple of years ago. And that in turn incorporated Lasmo's business, which ENI had previously purchased. So there's a substantial team with people with ex-ENI and Lasmo backgrounds and others inside Prime, and they're very capable. And what's interesting to us is that they have quite a substantial gas business already in Pakistan, extending downstream as well. And that's a very complementary capability from our point of view, and one that we think could be of strategic value down the road in Cameroon. Now, in terms of the future collaboration, first of all, it seems to us that although at the moment our focus is on the oil in the Njonji structure, even the Njonji structure may have some gas in it, but we know there's a lot of gas all around us. And one of the issues down the road is what to do with that gas. The government in Cameroon have very ambitious plans for developing gas to power between now and 2030. And we realize that developing those plans is a natural corollary to getting anything done with the gas in the shallow offshore. So we'd like to see both of those develop, and we'd like to be able to support that process if we can. And the fact that Prime also have this kind of capability means that there may be other ways that we can work together outside of strictly the Charlie license. And we really look forward to exploring those opportunities.
Okay, so a credible, well-known company with a great track record and people behind them have got experience in the industry. Now, you've done the two transactions, so I assume you're happy with them, but are you totally happy with the terms of the two transactions?
Oh, yeah. I think that when it comes to a negotiation, both parties do their best for their respective shareholders. And so, always at the end of it, everyone's left feeling like they might have preferred to do a little bit better. And that's a kind of indication of a good negotiation. In this case, looking at it objectively, and we did look at the deal metrics and so on that were available as well in judging where to pitch it. We've managed to achieve a transaction that involves retaining a bigger participating interest for Tower than we'd looked at previously. So we're pleased about that, and that's based on the fact that prices are a bit higher now. The market environment's a bit better. Having said that, though, the market environment hasn't improved enormously, and the fact is that there's still not that many deals being done. So we think that the deal that we've done here is fair to both sides and is an improvement on where we were in terms of previous deals. I think that's all one can ask for. Namibia is harder to value because it's early stage. And of course, if we were drill ready with 3D seismic already in place, the valuation would be significantly higher, I would hope. However, to get there, you've got to spend quite a lot of money. And so we always felt that a partner going into the 3D stage would be nice to have, even though we were kind of getting our heads around the idea that we wouldn't probably have a partner. So to have a partner now is very good, and I think the valuation is reasonable, and certainly the valuation is more than is currently reflected in our share price. So we felt that this was a sensible uh, piece of risk management and also just a good way to handle our financing going forward. So that's why we did the terms we did, and yes, we are happy with them.
Good. I want to focus a little bit for the next few moments on Cameroon. You've got $15 million to deploy in Cameroon. How far does $15 million go? And how will you fund any further work there?
Well, as many say about many things all the time, $15 million doesn't go as far as it used to. Um, but it still should be enough to certainly cover the well commitment. The question is how much further it might take us beyond that, because the more we test or take further steps towards the ultimate uh, move to near-term production, that will involve more expenditure. Now, our thinking has always been that once we've drilled the well and got at least a basic flow rate, we should be able to access pre-production financing, debt-type financing, for even a temporary production authorization. So we are hoping that we won't need much, if any, in the way of extra equity to take us forward. We are still working on those bank possibilities that I'd mentioned in previous announcements. So that is certainly our hope, but you can never be certain. And realistically, if we do need additional money beyond the 15 million, the good thing also is that we have a partner now picking up their share of it. So the amount that we might need in case of a modest delay or overrun, or simply the desire to put a bit more equity in before we finalize the bank financing, will be modest. But that's quite a ways off because, obviously we'll we've got enough to make the basic well commitment first anyway.
So you're not expecting any near-term equity raising?
No, one can never say never with a public company, but I think that we have enough money coming in, provided these deals complete when we expect, to cover our immediate needs. And, if we did see anything that warranted raising extra money, that would be because it'd be an extra deal or something that would we would want to talk to shareholders about whether they would actually want to finance. But something like that, it's not something that we see on the horizon at the moment. At the moment, we still think we've got our hands pretty full with all the opportunities we're currently developing.
Okay, let's look at some of the practicalities in Cameroon, in particular the oil rigs. What's your take on availability of rigs, timing of availability? How does that looking for you?
The rig situation is a lot easier than it was, say, 18 months ago, when we were in the situation where just to get a single rig was very hard. That was after Aramco had taken a lot of the jackup rig capacity out of the market. Really, just to get a rig, or to get a place in the queue for a rig, which is effectively where we were with the Norway, for example, that was difficult to do, and always subject to the other contracts that were out there. The situation's a bit easier now. I wouldn't say that, it's a buyer's market, but the fact is there are a number of rigs available now because Aramco released so many rigs back to the market over the last few months. And a number of those rigs are headed towards West Africa. So at this point, we know of rigs that are coming available in each quarter, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. We can't say for certain which rig we'll want to use, because we don't yet know our own timing, because it depends on the approval cycle. So ultimately, the timing of the well is going to be driven no longer by when the rig comes available, but when the approvals come through, and then we can start the call-off cycle for the services and so on, so that we can schedule a rig. And that'll then determine the rig that we want to use. So it's kind of that way round now. That's a better situation to be in, but I realize it still gives a bit of uncertainty, and it's a good uncertainty now, because it reflects the fact that there are more options.
Okay, let's gaze even further into the future if we can. Come on, I'm going to push you on this one. When can we think about first oil?
It's an interesting question, because there are actually two scenarios that we're exploring at the moment. The first one is what we've been talking about with investors for some time now, which is our original plan to simply suspend the well once we've drilled it and done a very short test on it, and wait to bring back a platform and a rig to drill several more wells, with a view to then putting multiple wells into production simultaneously. And that's still a viable plan, and maybe the easiest one to finance. So that's still our plan A. If we go down that route, then I think we'd be looking at first oil in sometime in 2026, but probably not until well into 2026. There is another scenario that we've been exploring with Prime for some months, which is how we might get the first well into production earlier, assuming that it looks the way we expect. And that's because with oil prices still quite firm, even a single well looks like we could just about justify an early production system for that one well. Now, this still presents some technical issues regarding how you brace a single well conductor in this particular water depth, but we think it may be possible, and we'd like to do it if we can, because of course it'll be psychologically very nice for everyone to feel we've got some revenues and some production, even if it's less than the full amount, and it's not necessarily going to be hugely profitable, given that we'd have the full cost of the infrastructure for just the one well. But it'd still be useful also from a technical point of view, because while we wait for the platform and for the next three wells, we're also continuing to build information about the reservoir and its performance. So it's an option that we're considering. Whether we'll actually do it, we'll continue to look at this as we prepare for the well, and it's something that ultimately we wouldn't make a final decision on until we see where we are and what we've got. But if we went down that road, well, then it's conceivable that we could have first oil even around the end of 2025. But that also depends on the well timing. The most important thing to stress about timing is that we need the approvals before we can start to call down services. And calling down services and getting the rig to site, I would say, is probably a minimum of 4 months, and could be more. I mean, that's already cutting it quite fine. So those are the kind of parameters. And then the well itself will be, 30 to 45 days. So these are the kind of parameters that we're playing with.
Okay. Look, you obviously delivered some great news today on the farm outs for Cameroon and Namibia. I need to ask you, though, as well about South Africa, because last year you were talking about farm out discussions for the South African assets. Are they still continuing?
Yes, they are. Now, New Age is the operator of the South African assets, so they're conducting those discussions. And they're going on for a while, but they're still continuing. Mike Lakin at Envoy has been also working on the broader farm out process in South Africa. And my understanding from him is that there's still plenty of people, apart from the people New Age are talking to now, who are still very interested in that asset. So we do expect that we hope we'll continue to make progress on that. And we're supporting New Age as best we can. We've reviewed documentation and so on. So there's a live discussion going on there. But beyond that, we'll have to see how it goes. One interesting thing about that is that that discussion's been going on for longer than our prime discussions on Namibia and Cameroon, which puts a little bit into perspective the fact that although this whole discussion with Prime took a while, it certainly can take considerably longer to get deals like this finalized. And one has to accept that one can't just set the pace oneself. One has to work with people you're working with and deal with their schedules. The other factor is that I think things are starting to get clearer in South Africa now from a legislative point of view. And I think that really is something that's happened only over the last month or so. So I think that maybe things will pick up, but we'll have to see.
After lots of work behind the scenes, you must be now quietly excited about what 2025 can hold for Tower. Just share your thoughts on that and perhaps some of the milestones we should be looking out for.
Well, not so quietly. I'm very excited about 2025. I think that now that we've got these agreements under our belt, our main focus shifts to planning for rigs and the approval processes in both Cameroon and Namibia. The Cameroon process obviously will drive the rig decision. And so I must ask investors to be patient about that, because it will take a while. The due diligence that has to be done, and there are discussions to be had, and there's no way around it. But there's no reason to believe that with all the support that they've given us until now, there should be any sudden lack of support. So we expect to get all this done in reasonably good time. Namibia, in a way, ought to be a simpler process, but we also would ask investors to be patient there, because we know that the ministry and NAMCOR are extremely busy at the moment dealing with all the amendments to the petroleum regulations, local content rules, and so forth, in anticipation of the ultimately imminent production of the Total and Shell and Gulp discoveries. So we know that they've got a huge amount of work, and they've tried to expand their manpower to deal with it, but everything is taking a while. So these things will take a while, but these are milestones to look out for. And in the meantime, we're also looking at down the road further financing options as well, and we'll keep the market abreast of these things. It's always difficult to know how to do this when you've got commercial negotiations in process, and we don't particularly want to either overpromise or to tip our hand as to exactly what our position is in negotiating terms for these things. So again, we have to ask our investors to be patient and to trust us as they have trusted us over these farm outs. But as you can see, with patience, you get rewards, and we're very much looking forward to the rewards of 2025.
Well, Jeremy, thank you for joining us today. Congratulations on the farm out news, and please come back and keep us informed as the year progresses. That was Jeremy Asher, Chairman and Chief Executive of Tower Resources, giving us a very good overview of developments in Cameroon, Namibia, and South Africa, and a little glimpse into what 2025 may hold for Tower Resources. That's it for this edition of Blythe Business News. Thanks for watching.